Hello, Delvin. Thank you for spending time with me today. I'm very proud of you as one of our graduates, and I love what you've been doing.
Well, I've been doing a lot since I interacted with you way back in 2002. I took your incredible online class on a farm with a local group of about 10 people. And you really set me on a learning journey that I could not have anticipated. That's carried me over the past 18 years and taken me to Australia a number of times and all over the world to study with permaculture pioneers.
That's wonderful. But how has that influenced your daily life?
I've really taken permaculture as a path. I mean, the year after I did your first online permaculture design course, I managed to get government money from the federal government of Canada to facilitate a youth program for youth at risk. And I worked with you to run the online course as a part online and also live program where we built a lot of community demonstration gardens and went into elementary schools in our region and did eco-education. So it was really incredible. That was through a community services center. So soon after taking your class, the next time I started teaching with it as a support and with you as a support. And I've been teaching in different capacities ever since.
It was really different days, and you were there in the really early days where we could only type to one another. And now there's this happening and very different learning experiences.
It's really important to get experience and have stories to tell about lessons, mistakes, opportunities, successes, and failures. And a lot of my learning has just been from building community gardens to implement a lot of what I learned from you. And I did a diploma with Bill Mollison immediately after our course as well, which also gave me some structure and encouraged me to just get out and in the field and learn through experience. So I think creating a garden or a series of gardens and really thinking of them as classrooms and demonstration sites and framing my process that way of recording the process and thinking about what I learned through the process and how I would share it to other people and how I would make the garden itself a classroom that communicated lessons. That was really the way that everything came into play and left the page and the book and the screen and went into my own direct experience. I began my work with community by offering tours of the gardens and free introductory days. So it was really low commitment, and I wasn't expecting that much from people. I made these things pretty short, an hour to 3 hours tops. And I started to meet a lot of people and to make connections in my community and meet other people that were like-minded and that had similar interests. And as those relationships grew and I became more experienced in building relationships, the garden grew and their relationship to the garden grew. So they wouldn't necessarily always come to see me, but they began to come to learn directly from the garden that was a teacher on its own. So I really started small with building those relationships. And then I took the garden as a means or a vehicle for connecting with more organized parts of the community. And I asked the local community center and the community organization. We have a bunch of levels of local regional government in our area, including a community association. And I went to the high schools and elementary schools and asked to talk to the parent advisory councils and the principals. And I started to reach out to all these educational groups and nonprofits and local government groups and tell them that I wanted to come and share about my project, which was this educational garden that anyone could use or visit. And I really just wanted to make them aware of the project and have it be a resource for them. So I had the opportunity to come in and present about the garden and invite these different organizations and groups to be involved in a capacity that didn't cost them any money, really just them understanding what the resource was in the community. And I was met with some surprise because they were used to people coming in with proposals for money. So coming in with a proposal to just share a free resource that was community minded helped me set up another set of relationships with people in the community that were even more movers and shakers and people that were doing things. So the garden project became a way to meet and connect and network with lots of people. And then I would see them around at different events or different classes, and I would already have taken the initiative to have met them. And so it would be easier to connect up and see what they were doing.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I'm really curious. You are really a visionary with permaculture, and you're starting one of the earliest online courses with the support of Bill Mollison was very future thinking, and you anticipated the kind of global world that we were going to move into, and you anticipated the need to be able to reach out to people where they lived, whether it's in Australia or even people like me in my little village in Canada. And I'm curious to hear a little bit about where your online classes and offerings are now, 18 years later.
I really believe in passion as a driving force. So I had the passion and I had the time, and I also had the training from my mum. She'd been an entrepreneur, because I thought there would be a need. So I guess that project had the need, but I got to tell you what drove that project even further was people like you giving me new information about your climate and how it differs, and the people and how they differ. Because although we have the same language, we have a very different culture. And so it's those different cultures that really fascinate me. I'm still fascinated by all the students that I've had in remote spaces and different countries, because their responses have been so different. To a classroom, people kind of get in consensus. Oh, yeah, I get it. But when it's individual, no, they go, no, I don't understand.
I love it. That I'm so interested. You've been such an influence on so many of us, both with your sort of fearlessly treading into the online territory, but also with the creativity and the art and doing things so wonderfully out of the box. And that's something that really impressed me when I got into permaculture, because I saw that it was permaculture design, but I also noticed that a lot of the design of the media, of the educational media, was not as creative as it could have been. And maybe it just took a little while, but we had some examples like you and Robin Clayfield, and that really was one of the things that pushed me forward, was being interested in how can we design the educational materials about design in a really dynamic and interesting way that relates to the changing times and the changing cultures that we're a part of.
Also, I guess it's a balancing act. How much of this will be playful to me, but not playful to you? And so I'm not as playful as Robin Clayfield online, because I need to be clear so that our communication is supportive. And the other thing that frustrates me about teaching permaculture is it's a holistic system. It's about design. And yet we have to study the components or the bits. And so if you finish too early, you've just got a really good view of all the bits and you haven't got the view of the whole. So I try so hard to show them different visions. And I guess I'm still dreaming that one day that the design features of permaculture will come more naturally.
Beautiful.
So you've got a book coming out.
Yeah, I've been working on a book ever since our class in many ways. I am a note taker. When I took your class, I just finished a university degree and a 2-year post-baccalaureate degree in humanities, general arts. So I was really used to being in classes and taking notes. And when I began to take these different classes, I took notes, but I felt like I wanted something to do with those notes and not just take them and then put them on a shelf. So I started to put them together into worksheets and into articles and interview the teachers more specifically that I was studying with and integrate the interviews into the notes. And the book developed over many years and many editions. And when I started teaching permaculture more regularly, the full certification course, I turned these into worksheets.
Great.
So, kind of the centralization of the curriculum of permaculture. And so this helped to make sure that I covered all the bases, because I was a student of Bill Mollison and Jeff Lawton, and really wanted to make sure that I did justice and communicated this whole system, which is a huge amount of information. So over the years, I refined the notes, the core curriculum notes, into different editions, and had a lot of mentorship from people like Rosemary Morrow. And what you were saying was really resonating with a lot. Rosemary Morrow has talked to me about being clear and concise and articulate in a way that's so accessible that it can be translated into other languages or understood by people who speak English as a second language.
Yes.
So I still have a long way to go, but that process of turning my notes into something to share was a big part of my learning process and enabled me to learn the information way deeper. You know, they say the best way to learn is to teach. And by creating these shareable notes and then teaching them in permaculture design courses, that was really how I started to get permaculture, particularly this holistic level that you're talking about, where you see how the different individual components can work together in myriad ways. And that's where a lot of the creativity comes, when you see that you can combine things in new creative ways and discover opportunities for functionality, for saving time, energy, and money, or having elements work together in new and unique ways. And a big part of that is experimenting.
Great.
So there's a lot of relationship too between the way we design physical spaces and the way we design for relationships with other people. And I think that's really how we're going to design ourselves out of the situation that our world is in right now, is by cultivating stronger community relationships and designing our lives in a way that is inclusive and opens up the possibility of meeting new people and joining forces with other like-minded people. And that's why I was so interested in getting connected with the local government groups, educational groups, and nonprofits. I really wanted to be an active part of my community and be connected. And that's really, I think, what permaculture is designed to create, that type of resilient abundance when you love and are loved by many people. So I'm really optimistic that the next level of community culture is going to be really vibrant and really alive and really creative.
I really think we're amazingly resourceful. We're resourceful
Absolutely.
creatures.
Well, I've been working on a toolkit to help people to create their own classrooms, whether it's with their family or with their neighbors, and empowering people to create their own learning groups that are maybe co-facilitated, where people are alternating being teachers and learners. So really getting cooperative with education. Besides the book that I'm creating right now with the core curriculum, I've made a set of cards. I don't know if I've mailed you these cards,
Thank you.
but yeah, there's 230 cards, and these are principles and design methods. Oh, you have it.
Yeah.
And so this kind of, I think of permaculture often as a checklist. Here's some creative ways you could approach making the decision yourself about the future and things that you could do. So these cards, by turning like a book or a lecture and deconstructing it into a card game that really has no rules, and that you can draw a card from the deck and get one of the principles or design methods from permaculture. And then you can let that drive your own process, almost like a checklist. Like, oh, I got something about composting. What am I doing for composting? How can I do a better compost? Maybe I'll go take a workshop or watch a video or learn a little bit more about composting and see how I can take my own composting to another level. So that's one way of kind of taking a class and turning into a game and encouraging people to play that game themselves in an unfacilitated way. And then there's a second set that I'm just finishing now, which is just a set of images of elements found on permaculture sites. How could we design our site differently? What goes where and why? Yes. So you can kind of use this in tandem with the permaculture design too, of looking at one of the principles, you know, every function supported by multiple elements. And then you look around and say, well, okay, water is a core function? How many elements are supporting our need for water? And where would these elements go? Something that I really recommend is to turn the learning experience into an adventure.
Yeah.
An adventure of connection and a journey. So amazing after 18 years to come back into a dialogue with you, my first permaculture teacher, that really unlocked this whole life adventure that I've been on for the last 18 years. I really love everything that you've done, and I'm honored and grateful for the opportunity to carry some of the insight and intelligence and inspiration that you've given me and share that to other people to keep the fires of permaculture burning brightly in new people and old people. So thanks for lighting my fire and starting me off on a learning journey that has really brought a lot of meaning and a real sense of purpose into my life. Thank you so much, April.
You're welcome.